Now, with all that in mind, and I was starting to talk about integrity in journalism and what, the real motivations are for people that come out and do these things, Barry, you might want to hold on to yourself for a minute here because I brought Daniel Louis Crumpton in. Can you hear me, sir?
Hi.
Oh, boy. Now, just for the notes, the edification of the listener. This apparently is my mind control handler. He is the guy who is apparently controlling things that I say and do, and may actually also be simultaneously my puppy dog. So please give me the key phrase, Mr. Controller, as we go forward into my show. Notice my mannerisms have now changed. I have shifted into my controlled state.
Puppy dog handler. Yeah, see, I've been accused of a lot of things, and I guess puppy dog handler just might as well go on the resume now. So I'm glad that my programming is working for you, Mr. Ochelli, that you could make it to the air under such horrible conditions with your teeth today. Congratulations. Barry, nice to meet you.
Hey, nice talking with you, Daniel. We've talked before.
Too.
Yeah, now this obviously is tongue-in-cheek, people. Look, if you think that either I have any sort of control over somebody else or anybody really controls me, you don't know a damn thing. But hey, let people carry out their odd delusions about what might actually be happening. No, in fact, if you despise the things I say and do, you only have me to blame. The network doesn't control me. My guests don't control me. I don't bow to anybody. Period. So let's keep that in mind.
The only way that I've figured out how to control Chuck Ochelli is to shut his cartoons off.
All right, I grant you that.
You cut off Family Guy, you got him in the palm of your hand.
You watch that stuff, Chuck? Are you a cartoon guy?
I love cartoons, because they really, it's the only thing that, look, you could ask anybody who really knows me, what does this guy, use for entertainment when he's not, listening to conspiracy theories, watching videos on, reptilians and how many times JFK was actually shot and 9/11 and all that. When he's not doing that, what does he do? Anybody who knows me will say, this guy's watching cartoons, for God's sake. It's true. It's absolutely true. The Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park, I love all that stuff. I really do. That's my only, mainstream entertainment outlet. Constantly. So that's, you want to get into my psychology about it, go ahead. But, we've only got an hour and something left. So, it'll take a while. But,
that's the only way I figured out how to control Chuck Ochelli is to imitate somebody from The Simpsons or Family Guy, and then you have him in the palm of your hand. Other than that, I have no interest whatsoever in being Chuck Ochelli's handler or his puppy dog. I just simply will be satisfied with the term friend.
You're a friend.
Yeah.
And that he is. And as I said earlier in the show, it's like I'm on with two of my brothers here tonight. One of them I have not seen face to face. The other one I have. But it doesn't matter. I know who my people are.
Actually, you haven't even seen me face to face, you blind fuck.
Here we go. You heard that, didn't you? All right. See, now you're going to make me go into Italianese, and I'm going to have to handle this guy. This is the way this is going to have to go.
I was wondering if your audience had recognized that as of late you've become more and more Italian mobster-ish. And if they
you're ready to kill, man.
Yeah, if they only knew the backstory to that, it'd be so fabulous. But, yeah, at any moment, this guy could go off, Forget about it.
Well, I think it's time we make them an offer they can't refuse.
Well, it's exactly a time that they need an offer they can't refuse. Now,
exactly, like get off your ass or die.
You got it. First of all, to everybody who's listening, that's really the contract here. Okay, but...
Well, in a nutshell, go ahead.
In a nutshell. On top of it, though, I got to say that for those who choose to make themselves my enemy, just like I was telling that story about what my grandmother said to me, she said, all my life, she always said, you're the grandchild that I worry about. And she said it to me last year. She died on 9/11 this year. But she said it to me about a year ago again. And I said, finally I said, listen, you're worried about me and the radio show and the stuff I'm doing and things like that, not even remembering that she's always said this to me. But then it clicked. She said, no, it's just that I know that you have such a tremendous depth to love people. I'm afraid of what will happen when you learn to hate them. And I told that to Maria Heller on Wednesday, and she said she understood completely what that meant. I'm not saying that I do necessarily, but that's what it's come down to, and I still have not really truly learned to hate. I've learned to get angry, though, again, and I guess that gives me slightly different mannerisms. So, all right, enough of my personal crap. Here comes... Yeah, go ahead.
And tying in with what we're going to be talking about, I forget the name of that movie, Newsroom or whatever it is, but he says, before anything can happen, the first thing you have to do is get mad. You got to get mad.
Yep.
And once you get mad, then the road starts to become clear. But you got to get angry about your current situation, and that's the only thing that's going to give you enough leverage to enact any kind of a change. You got to get angry first. So I am so glad to hear Ochelli back on the radio, pissed as hell.
Yeah, me too. I was worried there for a few days that you were gone, Chuck, and I was just going, wow, that can't happen. Who am I going to go on the radio with? Come on.
Well,
yeah, but you know what, Daniel? I agree with you, but why are we not mad? Why is, me and Chuck got into this conversation here a couple of weeks ago. What is it that is holding the general population back from standing up and screaming at the top of their lungs that we see what's going on, that we know that you're not our friends, and we're going to put a stop to it? What is stopping society from doing that? Well, let's talk about a few of those things tonight, guys. Let's talk about the divisions in our society and how they've been put into our society and how they're affecting us now. I'd love to get into that conversation if you want.
Well, it's what keeps us from doing that is apathy. But on the related topic, I'm not quite sure because I had to make sure that all my other mind control slaves were operating correctly so that I could go on the air tonight. So here shortly, if you guys hear a ding on Chuck Ochelli's door, that means that my mind-controlled puppy dog girlfriend's bringing him a slice of pizza because I got it like that. So, but on a related topic, I'm not sure if you got into the main deal. Have you yet, Chuck?
No, I have not. I was waiting for you. And the reason is that, look, first of all, I don't even want to get into it in depth this hour, but I'm going to give people a little preview here. We said on this radio show, we went on Clyde Lewis's radio show, you and I. We went on your radio show. We were on Vinny Eastwood's show. We went anywhere they would give us a microphone. Okay? Back, let's remember now, back when there was this thing going on in Bern, Oregon. Okay? Why?
Well, go ahead.
The deal was that there were people there that were doing something that was conducted in an ill-advised fashion, which I said from the beginning. I thought that it was poorly planned, poorly executed, and what was going on there was going to lead to nothing but a disaster. Bottom line. Fortunately for them, quite honestly, only one man wound up dead. Fortunately for them, only a few guys really wound up in prison. Fortunately, it wasn't one of those another Waco situations like one of the hothead loose cannons was screaming on a live stream constantly. Okay? Fortunately, it wasn't something where we had to mourn the deaths of many, many people and take a look at it and re-examine our own souls, our government once again, the entire evil structure that has risen up. We didn't have to do that this time, but damage has still been done. We went everywhere trying to actually engage in discussions, get these guys to bring responsible journalists that were going to tell the real story about what was happening there in, and it didn't happen. That was my initial entry into that situation. Of course, we knew about it before it happened because we have friends.
Mm-hmm. We know people. We heard things.
You know people, you hear things, and information is one of the things that is of most value, no matter what you think. See, here we go again, Barry, right? Okay.
But basically, tying into the Oregon thing and what has both Chuck and I very, very upset is because, in fact, yeah, we did. We went anywhere where we would be heard regarding the takeover or the siege of the Oregon standoff thing, the Mount Horror Refuge, and we basically did what everyone told us not to do and call names out. And me and Chuck both, at personal risk and at the risk of, our, I guess I could say your brand or whatever, we both came out and we said outright that Pete Santilli was going to get people killed. That Pete Santilli of the Pete Santilli Show was out there doing things that was going to provoke a violent conclusion to that ordeal. And we made several predictions, and we were, of course, shot down. Oh, no, that's not going to happen. Oh, no, this isn't going to happen. And so far, me and Chuck are batting 100, man. And
well,
so
you're not a baseball guy. We'd be batting 1,000 if we haven't missed yet. Yeah, it's okay.
Paintball, then. Okay.
Yep.
So this week I was extremely I haven't really percolated on all the emotions of it. But the headline I want to read is Feds Dismiss Conspiracy Case Against Oregon Standoff Defendant Pete Santilli on the Eve of Trial. As if we didn't see this coming.
Well, yeah, we stated this several times that what would happen, much like in the situation where this guy magically walks away from a gun charge, somewhere else, magically walks away from other situations where it seems like other people got themselves into some hot water. Look, I'm just being an observer here. If it keeps happening, it must indicate something from the pattern, What are you going to do? But meanwhile, everybody said to me during this entire time, and we have another friend who has actually gotten free temporarily, pending the trial, but, he's still engaged in the situation. So I'm not going to comment on him very much, unless you want to, Daniel. That's up to you. But the fact is,
we have a friend whose neck is still on the chopping block over all this, and any commentary that I make tonight has no reflection on him, my relationship with him. Like I said, he is still facing charges. He is fighting it in trial, and you guys can keep up with that. It's obviously Jason Patrick. You can go to the Jason Patrick Project on Facebook to get daily updates on what's going on with that trial. You can also go to downloadedcontent.com/JPP to get updates on what's going on with his trial. But what I have to say about Pete Santilli is not married to the relationship that I have with Jason Patrick, nor should it be.
Right. I wanted to make that very clear as we go forward that we may have other individuals that are involved in this situation that are not part of this discussion tonight. I wanted to make that extremely clear. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to read just a few paragraphs from the Oregon Live, OregonLive.com. It says, on the eve of his trial, federal prosecutors in Oregon have dropped the conspiracy indictment against Peter Santilli, a self-described independent broadcaster who was present during the 41-day occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Harney County. Santilli, 51, was the lone person of 8 defendants set for his trial this month who never stayed overnight at the Federal Wildlife Refuge in eastern Oregon. Isn't that cute? And his attorney argued that much of the material he broadcast on his YouTube channel was protected speech under the First Amendment. In a motion filed late Tuesday afternoon, federal prosecutors urged the court to dismiss the indictment, citing U.S. District Judge Anna J. Brown's ruling last week that limited the evidence they could present against Santilli. Now, on a personal note, I wonder how much of that evidence is still going to be used against the other defendants, but that's neither here nor there. For example, the judge ruled prosecutors cannot present evidence of Santilli haranguing counter-protesters at the refuge or badgering traditional news media in an attempt to dispute Santilli's defense that he was simply acting as a member of the press documenting the refuge takeover. Quote, based upon this court's pretrial evidentiary rulings excluding evidence against Santilli, the government has decided that the interests of justice do not support further pursuit of these charges against Santilli, end quote, according to a motion signed by U.S. Attorney Ethan Knight. And then it goes on. You can read the rest of it at Oregon Live. But basically the premise of them dropping the charges after a few months of him having a vacation is that he was operating as the press.
Now, we're getting ready to go to break, but I want to put this out there. This has nothing to do with anybody else's opinion. I'm telling you that from my observations, from the beginning, I have stated that what I witnessed this guy doing was not operating. When you operate as a member of the press and you are covering a news event, there are certain things that happen. You are not participating in the news. You are covering it. There is a fine line there. And that's not because I have I'm married to some mainstream standard. I'm talking about the standards of legitimate journalism. No matter what you want to call yourself, no matter how much you get paid to do it, I don't care if you're on a high school newspaper, you're doing your own podcast, or you're working for one of the alphabet soup piece of garbage corporations. It doesn't matter. Okay? There is a standard. There is a way, a code of conduct here that puts you in a position where you don't participate in the event. You are merely covering it. Okay? What we saw, what this guy made sure to put out there, what I saw over and over and over again, is somebody who was disrupting public meetings, participating in interactions with law enforcement, claiming to be part of the occupation, while meanwhile, as he said there, just in the article alone, never actually getting down in the trench, staying overnight with his alleged comrades. All of this stuff, it seems as though, depending on the purposes, based on what I could observe, sometimes he's a member of the press, sometimes he's a member of the occupation. When it comes to being prosecuted, I'm going to hide behind the press credential. And he doesn't have one, outside of, electrical tape put on the back of a vest, I guess, or whatever that was, that said press. It doesn't even mean that everybody needs to have a credential. I'm not sticking to that. What I'm saying is, if you're going to cover a news event, you cover it. An embedded journalist, okay, is not firing shots at the enemy in a war. All right? That is the issue here. And the conduct and the nonsense to end up resulting in this guy being set free, I find it extremely fascinating. We're going to cover that, the integrity of alternative journalism in general. We're going to name names, and we're going to take some necks. Barry Prince and Daniel Louis Crumpton are with me on the Ochelli Effect. Stay tuned, people, because we'll be back in the second hour, and it's going to get deep. Second hour of the Ochelli Effect here on American Freedom Radio at AmericanFreedomRadio.com, which is where the live show originates from. I do apologize if you hear a little bit of unprofessional noise coming out of my mouth as we go forward tonight. It's swollen. I am not in good shape, but I'm doing my best. So, my guests tonight are Barry Prince and Daniel Louis Crumpton. We opened up a subject in the first hour that needs to be carried over into the second. Who knows where the show will go after this? But here we go. Factually. And also, you know what? In the second hour, that beginning piece there you heard is from a song called Sharks by Payday Monsanto. Support independent artists. Payday is an awesome hip-hop artist, and he's available on iTunes and other places. Go get it. Go support him. I mean, you can find it for free if you want to, but hey, I suggest, just like when I talk about alternative media and your need to support those who support your right to know something real, well, Payday's just like that, too. He's just a hip-hop artist doing it. So, back to it. What are we talking about? The unreal, actually. A guy who was fired from American Freedom Radio, quite honestly. This is the person in my crosshairs tonight. He was fired from this network, by the way, not because his views were outrageous or he was too much of a patriot or anything like that. No, folks. Not because his conspiracy theories were wild, although they are idiotic and obviously not studied very well. And although this guy just seizes upon buzzwords and rhetoric that seems to be popular in certain circles in order to cloak himself in something so that you'll have a need to support him, the piece of human filth we're talking about was actually released from this network for attacking other hosts, for being nasty to other people, for actually just being an impossible jag-off in the background, okay? I don't care if his name ends with a vowel. I got no use for this guy. There we go. Fact is, that's the truth about it, because some people have said, hey, Santilli used to be on American Freedom Radio. Yeah, for about a cup of coffee. And you know what? There's a reason why. He got semper fired from from the AFR thing, you know, because this thing of ours, it wasn't a thing of his. He didn't belong here, and I can say whatever I want. I don't make things difficult for the people that are trying to support me or giving me a platform. I don't do that unless, you know, you count being a little too truthful, being a little too rough on occasion, all that kind of stuff. No, but forget about me. This guy, as we stated in the first hour, conducted himself in a rather interesting fashion in Oregon. Now, was that the first time we saw this? No. I remember this guy at the whole Bundy standoff running down the street with his whatever iPad, whatever, you know, he always seems to have this wonderful new equipment and brand new RVs to sleep in and money for hotel rooms, thanks to people supporting him for some odd reason or other. But the deal is he's running down the street talking about going to American Spring. Everybody remember American Spring? Everybody remember that debacle that didn't go anywhere? Everybody remember the other stuff that we heard about this guy with, you know, who knows if money disappeared during this or that or the third thing and blah, blah, blah. Hey, look, I don't report on things and call them facts unless I know they're facts. I do know about the rumor mills. I do know about what I got to see, what was put out publicly. I got to know what was happening as far as a journalist, allegedly not being a journalist, but actually being a provocateur in the most absolutely obvious sense possible. And I know that a good man who I was in contact with, who was going to be on this show, got killed.
Yeah.
You understand that?
I've said this often. I don't know if people quite understand it, but the First Amendment has things like commas and semicolons.
But not only that, hang on one second. Just my last sentiment here. The First Amendment protecting this guy, okay, the First Amendment is meant to protect you. It certainly is. But you don't have the right. You notice I have never, on this show, no matter how angry I've gotten, gone out and said, you know what, I advocate violence against XYZ person. I'm telling you to go out and do this. I don't go out and try and provoke people because I know about the responsibility I have. As a broadcaster, as somebody who's doing this for real, I realize that even though I might want to see people hung in the streets, I'm not going to tell you to go do it. I'm not going to try and provoke that situation because I know what my responsibilities are. That's it. I'm sorry, but I needed to get that out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, when you look at the First Amendment, which obviously this is what he's hiding behind, it says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, comma, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, semicolon, or abridging the freedom of speech, comma, or of the press, semicolon, or of the people or the right of the people to peaceably assemble, comma, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, why I make that point is if you're going to be a journalist, if you're there to report, you're within that comma of the press. When you step outside of the comma, you don't get to carry the press with you and be a provocateur. You need to pick your role. And what we saw with Pete Santilli, what we consistently see with Pete Santilli, is that he's not operating as the press. Now, he's operating as the press whenever there's a federal indictment. But what we saw live on YouTube was this guy was provoking, he was encouraging, and he was participating in the same type of activity that these other guys are facing charges on. But because he waves a magic wand and says he's the press, then it all goes away. And we're talking about integrity in journalism. Having integrity in journalism is be a fucking journalist. If you're going to be a journalist, be a journalist. If you're going to be a protester, be a protester. But you need to own it. Now, what's sad to me, Chuck and Barry, is that if he goes to Nevada, because he's still in custody, he's got to go to Nevada to face what they say is more, quote, serious charges. But honestly, he did more in Oregon than he did in Nevada. So I'm seeing if they drop the charges in Oregon, they're probably going to drop the charges in Nevada. I'm not a betting man, but if I was. So what's sad to me is that when this guy does eventually walk out and he takes maybe a week vacation and enjoys some of that donation money, that he's going to have the audacity and the gall to go back on the air And he's going to use this entire ordeal as a badge of honor. Look how much I love the Constitution. Look how much I support the right of the people to protest. And what's even more sad than the fact that he doesn't have the guilt of the blood of Lavoy Finicum on his hands, because he does. At the end of the day, he does. It is his fault. I'm not speculating. I'm telling you as a rational, logical person that was watching this unfold in front of our eyes that Lavoy Finicum is dead due in part to Pete Santilli making these people feel like the majority of the people on the outside were behind what they were doing, and that's not so. That's just not so. So when he does get back behind a microphone, it is going to shock me, believe me, that there are going to be so many other useful idiots who will tune in and believe his horseshit and support him and send him money and only bolster this attitude that got a whole bunch of good activists who, whatever their intent was, they're facing charges, and a guy dead. Now, to me, that just says something that there's a danger that of cult of personality now on the internet, and he's one of them. And he's only going to get more and more people harmed, and it just baffles my mind.
Well, and see, it does baffle me as well. Let me ask you, Barry, a question. I want to ask you this question. Just look, let's put aside all the sentimentality and what we just discussed here in specifics for a second, okay? There are individuals that you see as you observe certain things that happen on this planet. I'm not even going to get into specifics. But I guarantee you, Barry, that in your heart, in the very pit of your soul, as much as you are a Christian, as much as you are, the old hippie, and you're a peaceful man, tell me the truth, though. Sometimes there are people that you look at and you say to yourself, you know what? An act of violence happening to this person would not bother me at all. If this person got themselves killed sometime, it would not bother me at all. If this person ends up with cancer, it's a good thing. Whatever. The fact is that there are simple individuals on this planet who are so reprobate, so evil, that no matter how good of a person you are, you may want to see harm come to those people. I mean, in your gut, when you're all by yourself, when you're getting ready to close your eyes at night, there are people that I bet you could make a list of that, you know what, if I wake up tomorrow and they're not on this planet, it's a good thing. Am I right or wrong in a general sense?
Well, of course you're right, Chuck. There's lots of people that, myself, I kind of look at it like this, buddy. There's people on this planet right now that don't really deserve to be here. They're not humans. They're, like you said, they're beyond anything that I can even describe as evil. I can't even begin to figure out what goes on inside these people. I cannot.
Right.
But you know what, Chuck? It's not me in the end. And this is based on what I honestly believe, is they're going to have to stand in front of somebody who's a lot more powerful than me, and they're going to have to answer someday for everything they're doing. And I'll let him deal with it. And you know what, buddy? When I'm at the very end of my day, when I could get mad at so many people in this world, I have been screwed over by people. I've been taken advantage by people because it's my nature. But you know what? It's all water off my back now, buddy, because at the end of the day, I know he's going to deal with them, not me. And he is the one that will tell them where they're going to go when they stand in front of him. And that, believe it or not, is how I deal with the anger I have inside of me towards people. There's people in this world I'd love to see dead. There's people in government I'd love to see dead. But that's not my place to do that. It's not right for me to say, hey, I want you dead. I got you. Because they deserve to be dead, Chuck. I'm just going to leave it to somebody else to deal with them in the future.
No, I got that. No, hang on.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a second part to this. I just wanted to recognize that no matter how peaceful and loving a person you are, that there is a level of there is a way that you go on the radio. You've had a radio show for years. You have people that listen to what you have to say. How come you're not on there? Because you could say whatever you want. How come you're not on there telling people that they should do that? How come you're not on there trying to create a situation where something happens to these people? How come you're not doing that?
Well, because that's not what I'm here for, Chuck. But I know there's individuals out there right now in the world that are doing that. And the gentleman you're talking about here, that's exactly what I see him being, as a controlled mechanism that is there for a reason, to stir up certain parts of society to get a reaction from those parts of society that the government wants. That's what I see going on there. But anyway, he's a snake in the grass.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I mean, for you personally, how come you haven't, because I've listened to you many times. How come you're not on there making a list and telling people, you know what, if any way you can harm this person, harm this individual, harm these people, how come you're not doing that?
Because that's not me, Chuck.
Well,
that's
no,
not me. That's not in my heart.
Not only is it not you, but even if it was in your heart, even if you were completely overrun with anger and absolute disgust, and you got to that situation where you were looking at something that was beyond evil and evil and evil and evil, you wouldn't do it. And you know why? Because we all know that that is not what our role is when we are public speakers. We all know that we have a responsibility to not scream fire in a crowded theater. We all know that we have a responsibility to not try and provoke violence, to not try and provoke people to be putting themselves in harm's way, to not do those things. Those are the restrictions. Those are the real restrictions. They're not there because, oh, it's a mainstream thing and you're afraid. They're there because it is the responsible, decent thing to do as a human being. It doesn't matter what your agenda is. It doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. It doesn't matter if you're an idiot and you're on here telling us that Donald Trump is the most wonderful human being in the world. It doesn't matter what it is you want to say. These are the rules. Mm-hmm. Okay, these are the rules for speaking in public. These are the rules. Not because it's a crime, although it is. Not because it's a crime, but because there is a moral responsibility to participating in this world, in the media, but in general, even if you had 5 people in front of you and they were just hanging out with you at a coffee shop, you don't do this. Because why? This is not what a decent human being does, period. You don't provoke other people to put themselves in harm's way. You don't encourage violence. You don't encourage criminal activity, okay, that is reprobate and absolutely ridiculous, okay? You don't do that. That's what's not done. Did I miss something here, Daniel? I mean, and what are we looking at here?
Well, I mean, you know, like for me, I don't really call myself a journalist. I'm more of a commentator. So I basically say what my opinion is. Now, but that still puts the burden of a responsibility on me that if you have some type of influence over people and they listen to you, you have to know, especially if you're getting them to send you money, that what you say does carry a great amount of weight with what's going to determine their actions. You know, this is something that should be kind of self-evident. So the fact that he's now crying, oh, I'm just a journalist, people can make up their own mind. Well, no. Yeah, they did make up their own mind, and guess what they did? They did what you told them to do, or what you blew out of proportion that they were doing some just and righteous thing, and they engaged in activity that brought indictments. Now, if he's going to cry ignorance over that, I got another thing coming. I mean, you got another thing coming. This guy, he had to know that if you put a spotlight on somebody and blow up their ego, which is what I believe happened at the Malheur Refuge, was that they had very little outside perspective on how the Patriot movement was looking at what they were doing. He was kind of their feedback on that. And he blew it up as if everyone is behind you. This is a just and righteous cause. Keep doing that. In fact, not only should you keep cutting down fences and removing cameras, you should do it while I'm live streaming. How about that? So he had to know that this was something that was probably going to happen. In fact, he did know. You could look at his live stream and tell that he knew. He was inciting them for further and further action. Now that you bring all this up, now, like in this article that I was citing from, he's saying that, actually Pete Santilli was one of the rational people who were trying to talk them out of the refuge. Now, Chuck, talk on that for a second, because me and you both know that is one big pile of horseshit.
Well, this guy was turning around. Look, on his own presentations, not looking at any opinions, you can find this guy contacting the FBI, allegedly, because he's doing it with a cell phone, contacting police, making demands, stating that he's part of the occupation, okay, whipping up all sorts of different things. Then later on, not only participating in the actions you listed, but a lot more. This was a streaming event for how long was it? It was weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a little over a month, I think.
So during this time, he also would go as an emissary to different policing agencies. And at one point, there's a nice clip of him going, hey, listen, I'll try and talk some sense to them.
Yeah, that's right when he was arrested.
Yeah.
Right when he was about to be brought into custody, he said, look, guys, I'll go down there because, I'm this cool walrus with a cowboy hat, and I'll talk some sense into these guys and bring them out. Oh, yeah, at the very end, before he's brought into custody, now he wants to talk people out. But was that the case for the entire month or so? Absolutely not.
It didn't appear that way when he was purposely disrupting public meetings, which were meant to be an interface between the public and the policing agencies, filming it, but also getting himself thrown out so that way he could have that little badge of honor, interrupting people when they were talking, making sure to make himself into a nuisance, okay, and disrupting things which honestly could have created dialogues, okay, like it or not. A dialogue between the authorities and these individuals was going to be necessary in order to bring this to anything remotely resembling a decent conclusion, a peaceful conclusion, a less violent, a less difficult, a less problematic. You need to negotiate a situation like this, one way or another. Right. And he was counterproductive to that. He was inciting and taunting the agents of all sorts, the policing agents. He was inciting and taunting. In other words, both sides of the equation, this guy was actively taunting an already precarious situation. I'm using his own presentations to tell you that that was apparent all the way throughout the events.
Now, another thing that should be noted, I can't recall the guy's name, but he also has a YouTube channel. And this guy was actually in favor of Pete Santilli. And what he was doing was he was taking the live stream, and he was, I guess, jumping it off of his YouTube channel or taking clips from Pete Santilli to support Pete Santilli. Okay? Because he had, I guess, drank the walrus Kool-Aid, so he thought that Pete Santilli was doing a just and noble thing. So all he was doing was trying to spread the word, get as many eyes out there. You could go to YouTube, and I'll try to find the link before we go off air, where Pete Santilli hears about this cat, realizes that he's not getting a cut of any Google AdSense or donations from this cat, calls this cat up live on the radio, not knowing that he's live, and proceeds to rip his face off for having the audacity to run his Pete Santilli's material. Now, that clip, and it is important for me to find it before we go off air, that clip right there tells you the motivation of Pete Santilli. The fact that he called another independent journalist and said, you need to take your channel down because that's my material, shows you that Pete Santilli had no interest whatsoever in what was going on, the furtherance of the movement, the safety and protection of the people who were in the occupation. His motivation came down to one thing, and it's dollar signs.
And the saddest commentary on this comes from another one of these YouTube followers who was involved with Santilli, who was all the way behind him, was this kid, David Fry. Okay? David Fry, if you guys don't remember, is the kid screaming, stay tuned, watch us die on live stream tonight, when things were coming to an end. Okay, after some people had been taken into custody already, after Finicum is dead, after Santilli just doesn't seem to be on the scene anymore, and he's got some drunk dude in the hotel room with his woman Deb or whatever over there. This is what's going on. This kid is screaming, watch us die on live stream. We're all going to die. We're going to get killed here today. It's coming now. The government's coming. This is the apocalypse. Screaming and yelling like this on live stream. Okay, completely out of control stuff, even though nothing's happening at the time. They're going outside. They're hearing noises outside in the dark and screaming that, the automatic weapons are getting loaded. I have guns on me, all these things. Isn't that just a wonderful post-mortem on the situation? That's exactly, and they took those kids into custody at the end. But it was absolutely, I was astonished by that particular piece of footage, by the fact that was being rerun all over the place. I mean, I don't even know if it's on YouTube anymore, Daniel.
I don't know either, but I mean, if you want to look at the effectiveness of this whole standoff, Pete Santilli's little 3-ring circus, because at the end of the day, that's the way I look at it. This was Pete Santilli's 3-ring circus. And I know that there were some people who were there, I've said this ad nauseum, who had great motives. They went there with the best of intentions to further the Patriot movement and to make a stand. The minute that Pete Santilli showed up, it became the Pete Santilli show. And what did it do to the Patriot movement? It took a wooden stake and it put it right over the heart and it slammed it into the earth. Because the people that I know that are activists don't want to have anything to do with activism anymore, hardly. Why? Because of stupid shit like this. Why? Because Pete Santilli needed to get those subscription numbers up and get his name out there and get some donations. So this not only was not productive for the liberty movement and the whole idea of the Constitution and standing up for your rights, it was so extremely counterproductive that it has injected so many activists with apathy now.
That's absolutely true. There are guys that used to very much be not just the typical Patriot movement guys, but I mean really intensely, with the greatest passion, with the greatest love. And now, quite honestly, most of them are embracing anarchism. Mm-hmm. They're anarchists. They don't want any part of the nonsense that they saw. They don't want any part of the debacle, which, yeah, I do remember that the Bundys are involved here, and I've got a lot to say about that. I find that whole thing suspect, too, although, hey, look, not everybody has to agree with me, but the fact is anything that people thought was even accomplished as far as standing up to the government, making a statement, doing the right thing with that whole cattle rancher deal in Nevada before was absolutely erased. And, in fact, I think irrevocably damaged by this entire situation. We could talk about the leadership here. We could talk about all of it. But one thing I guarantee you is that somebody who claims to be a journalist was not a journalist, and you could not have scripted a better sabotage agent than this guy. You could not have scripted. The only thing that he didn't do, really, was get a good body count out of it. That's really the only thing that could have gone more in the favor of those that want to make any of us who talk about our personal liberties and our personal freedoms into basically raving lunatic idiots who can't think their way out of a paper bag. If that was your agenda, then the only thing he could have done better is gotten more men killed. Yeah. Other than that, tell me what was accomplished. And really, I want to turn to Barry at this point, because Barry's the Canadian. Barry's outside of the U.S., but Barry did see this happen. I know you did, Barry. Mm-hmm. And I want to know something. What does this look like across that line in Canada? What does this look like to you in general? Forget about what we're even talking about, but what is the lasting impression that you got from that whole situation, sir? Honestly.
Well, I'll be quite honest, Chuck. I haven't followed it as closely, anywhere near as closely as you and Daniel have, but just a general observation of what I've seen and what I understand of the whole situation would be exactly what you just said. Chuck, he was a saboteur. You couldn't script a better one if you tried. And if their objective was to, like you said, divide and destroy the alternative media or some of the mindset of the alternative media, I think they accomplished their mission, wouldn't you say? I mean, I haven't followed it as far as you and Daniel. I've only touched on the fringes. There's just so much going on that I really didn't follow as closely as maybe as I should have. There's a bunch of other stuff going on. I'm probably in the bush picking mushrooms. this time of year. But that would be my general observation, is that this guy was and is a paid saboteur, possibly.
I think that's a possibility. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the truth.
No,
Just a thought, Daniel.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'll come out and tell you right now, he was a paid saboteur, one way or the other. He got a bunch of donations. I mean, it doesn't matter if
supporting him.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if the feds paid him or whoever paid him. He got paid, and he sabotaged.
Well, the biggest thing about it is the influence. The biggest thing about it is the influence he's having on the people that are following him, because his mindset is up his arse, and he's having an influence on a lot of people. Like you said, Chuck, our responsibility as journalists is not to promote violence. I try and promote love and understanding between people. And as Daniel pointed out, it's not just journalists. It's just being a public speaker of any kind. Exactly.
You have that responsibility. So if I'm commenting, if I'm a comedian even, I've got a responsibility not to do things like this. It's just that simple. I mean, no matter what it is we're doing. And, before I turn it back over to you, Daniel, I just want to say something here. It's not just that we're upset about what happened, but I want this burned into the mind of who is listening to me right now. Not only has there already been a payment made for the damage done, but in the future, like Daniel said earlier, wearing it as a badge of honor. He's going to come out there and try to, cash in some more. Mm-hmm. Okay? Don't let that go from your minds. This guy is going to try and cash in some more. Now, bolstered by the bona fides that he has been, I went to jail for my beliefs. Yeah, let that ring in your head a second.
Oh, yeah, that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of people, but, like they say, there's a sucker born every minute. There's going to be a lot of people who buy it. And there are going to be a lot of people after this who are going to listen to his stuff, if that's the route that he chooses, which I'm pretty sure he will. That, my concern is, what is going to be the next event where he's going to be bolstered by his quote-unquote supporters. And it's going to be worse.
Yeah, worse. Why? Because it's still going to be the continuation. It's going to be the continuation. I'm dumbfounded, really. And the fact is that those of us who feel as though there is a basic human decency responsibility here to being a public speaker, fine, don't call any of us journalists. No problem. But we are speaking publicly. We're public speakers. Okay, by speaking publicly, you have a responsibility. Yes, you can say things that incite thought. You can say things that incite actions. That's for sure. You can do that. That is usually the point of speaking publicly. Okay? But you have a responsibility not to go out there and do harmful things for the sake of harm. Yeah. It's that simple.
But, I mean, even me personally, because you know me, Chuck, I used to be a huge activist. And this entire event, did it diminish my belief in the Constitution or people's personal liberties, or that you should stand up for yourself in that way? No. But as far as, wanting to go to some rally or anything like that, it completely took the steam out of me. And I'm like, no, this is stupid, because there's always going to be some asshole like this with a fake cowboy hat and a ridiculously mutated looking, and I'm making some personal attacks, and maybe that's childish. Give me a little bit of levity. The guy kind of pissed in my cornflakes, okay? But this guy, there's always going to be one of these guys. Now, Chuck, I know you personally, you know me personally, and me and you have had long conversations, obviously off the air, and we actually, believe in what the hell we're saying.
Yeah.
We really do believe in it. When you get off the air, the stuff that you're concerned about on the air and the stuff that I'm concerned about when I'm not writing or when I'm writing or when I'm on the air is the same shit we talk about off the air.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, the 2 hours you hear here is like a warm-up for what's really coming out of my mouth normally anymore. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth. This is like a hint at what's actually going on as far as my conversations with people, my interactions, my advice to others. Hey, listen, we should conduct ourselves this way because, after all, why are we bowing to the state? This is the kind of stuff I discuss just in general conversation. Okay? Yeah. Like, this is who I am. Yes.
Right.
And this is who you are. You go.
And it would be great. I mean, me and you, we live by the seat of our pants. We don't know when the next meal's coming. That's fine. And it would be great to get donations in. It would be great to get our numbers up on our websites and our YouTube channels. All that stuff would be great. But not one time have we ever had the conversation of, well, how can we, spin some shit in a way where it could cause damage to other people in order to do that? Yeah. At the end of the day, true journalists or public speakers or whatever it is that the three of us are, at the end of the day, yeah, those things would be great. I'd love to have a huge audience, as huge as Pete Santilli's, but not just for the sake of having an audience, because I am doing exactly what Pete Santilli should know, which is in trying to enact change in people's minds, but not at a cost of integrity.
Exactly. That's why I like being on with you guys, because I know where you're coming from. That you live, breathe, and sleep what we're talking about here on the air. And I find myself doing the same thing every day. I start conversations with people, and it's just like you're on the air because we know that it's our responsibility right now to try and inform, educate as many people as we can. A lot of people will never listen, but some will. And if, you know what, in my life, if I have one person listen to me, and I have any kind of influence in common sense thought to that person, well, that's a good day.
Yeah.
But, thousands would be great, but I hope that our common sense thoughts do influence people, because we're basically, all three of us are coming from a common sense background that nothing makes any sense in the world anymore. There is no common sense in the world, and what we're missing is common sense.
Oh, yeah. And look, sometimes, we do it by different mechanisms, but the message really remains the same. You know what I mean? I'll turn around and I'll make ridiculous statements to be sarcastic. I know I'm sarcastic on this show. I do it all the time. I know that. But the fact is that when I do that, I'm trying to provoke a certain level of thought. I am trying to get people to think for themselves, not to be followers. I don't want a bunch of followers who, and you know what? Yeah, the money would be nice and all that, but I don't care. It's not a matter of how much more he's getting there. The thing that hurts me is that people are following this kind of nonsense, okay, and thinking that they're on the same kind of path that they would be by listening to what it is that we talk about. I mean, if you think the fact that we talked about nature and natural solutions and mushrooms and stuff at the beginning of the show doesn't have to do with what we're talking about now, re-examine it. It does. We're talking about getting back to things which are your natural rights, which are your natural way of being, which are who you are. Be yourselves, whether I agree with you or not. Think for yourselves. Why am I telling you this? Because that's what I want to see. I would like to see a better world. I would like to see an improvement. I'm not looking to line my pockets. I'm not looking to gain fame. I don't care about any of that. If I can get just one of you to change things for the better and you can affect other people's lives, mission accomplished.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned.
Oh, and by the way, call me ADD, but that video that I was referencing, I just dropped it into the chat room, and it's called Burns, Oregon, Santilli hangs himself live on the air, TCR radio. And that's the Connors Report. And it's basically, you guys could go into the chat room or you could look it up later if you're listening on the rebroadcast and listen to 11 minutes of Pete Santilli ripping the face off of another host who was supporting him because he used his material and he wasn't getting a cut of the money. So take that and put it in your pipe whenever Pete Santilli starts his show back up again, and then you smoke the living hell out of that. Because that's what he really thinks of his audience, and that's what he thinks about anybody who's listening to him as another stream of revenue. And like I said, if Pete Santilli were getting a stream of revenue based off of his true conviction and true passion, that'd be great. That'd be wonderful. I would be applauding him. I would probably send in a little bit of change. But that's not the case, people. It's not the case. And while douchebags like this are out there excelling and will continue to excel, people like Chuck, me, and Barry and other real broadcasters that we know who really do this are like, what the hell's going on with these people out here? We're giving them hardcore truth, and they're going to this guy. And it's like, I'm wondering at the end of the day, do people just want to be deceived? Do they want to be led down a primrose path of destruction? What? I don't understand it.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it, Daniel?
Yeah.
I mean, why can't people see the trees for the forest? People don't want the truth. And I've really kind of come to my conclusion with a lot of people because it's like you could walk into a courtroom and shoot somebody in front of them and they still wouldn't find you guilty. Is they don't want to know the truth because the truth will just absolutely knock them right out of their comfort zone. A lot of people still refuse to believe that their government is evil. They still think their government's good. A lot of people still believe their doctor is a good guy. Well, a doctor is the biggest hypocrite in the world, and they're not a good person because they're not providing the information that you need to really heal your body. They are there to push drugs and make millions of dollars for big farming. To me, there's so many things in our society that are upside down, and all you really have to do is kind of look into the past. Look at our Earth 200 years ago, before the arrival of big farming, before the arrival of chemicals, before the arrival of nuclear power. What did we have? We had an absolutely incredible creation that was totally self-sufficient, that every part of this earth interacted with every other part of this earth. And what do we have now? We have a complete breakdown in all those systems due to greed of big farming and the chemical industries and the nuclear power regulations. It's all upside down. And if we're going to have any kind of future for our children, and that's what kind of drives me every day as I look at my grandchildren. I go, wow, I've kind of enjoyed a pretty good life. I've enjoyed the outdoors and the abundance of the ocean and being able to go in the bush and all this other neat stuff that I've been able to enjoy. But, right now I can't sit here and tell myself that they're going to enjoy the same thing. So this kind of drives me every day to get out there and just common sense, guys. What are we doing? What is our legacy? What are we leaving for our children? Right now, we're leaving the biggest pile of shit that we could ever leave for the next generation. And here you guys go deal with it. Well, that's not right, guys. We got to try and do what we can do right now to knock some sense into people's heads, however we do it. And talking with you guys is it just gets me going.
Right. Well, real quick, Daniel, according to a source right now, a source is telling me that he is actually, Santilli is physically in Pahrump, Nevada at this moment, apparently in custody there. He transferred there to, deal with the charges, I imagine, stemming from the 2014 events out there at the Bundy Ranch, I guess. Right. I don't have a complete report here. But, yeah, that's what I'm being told according to a source. People give me information on Skype while I'm doing the show. So that they verify that that's exactly where he is at the moment, just so you guys know. Go ahead.
And kind of touching on what Barry said is, and I hope that we don't sound like, pessimists on the radio here, because we are optimists. I am anyway. And especially like in the truth movement a few years ago, you start talking about stuff like this and you're going to end up in a rubber room for the most part. But like last night, and Chuck, he's a pagan, I'm a Helionostic, and Barry's a Christian. And so we're all together. We're all doing something. Right now we're running our mouth, but we're doing something together in a form of unity. And so, like, even last night, me and Chuck, we were talking, and, of course, we're dealing with some issues here in my home state that we're about to start addressing as, because we believe in doing what we're actually saying, making a difference. And, one of the neighbors around here, he happens to be a Jehovah's Witness. And he's going through the same issues that we are, because this problem is affecting all of us equally. And we all came together and decided, look, we as Americans and human beings need to come together, put our differences aside. We want to have theological debates later. We can do that. But for the time being, we all believe that we're from a higher source. There is a bigger God, whatever you conceptualize God as. And we need to do what that force has said and utilize our powers and abilities, gifts, and talents to solve this problem together.
Exactly. And that's the biggest task facing the human race right now, Daniel, because like we said earlier, what I mentioned earlier in the show is that we have so many divisions in our society that are stopping us from doing that. And, you know, these divisions that we see in our society now, these have been put in think tanks 40, 50 years ago. And I honestly believe they were put there to get us to this point in this particular time where we cannot identify the enemies, that we're fighting amongst ourselves and not able to identify the enemy. So we have to put aside our differences. Whatever your differences are, the most important thing right now is to be able to identify the enemy. And he's not across the ocean. He's right there in your backyard. Until people can do that, you know, as a group, as a mass amount of people, we're not going to achieve what we need to achieve.
That's right.
So we have to get rid of the divisions. And that's something, Chuck, that I would really like to sit down some night and have a good conversation about it. Because people don't identify these divisions, because these divisions have been put into our society over a long period of time. If you were to do what they've done in society over the last 40, 50 years, if you did that in a year or two, society would recognize it for what it is and they'd scream. But this has been done incrementally, very, very slowly, because people don't identify the changes. But now we find ourselves at a really, really precarious time in human history where we're fighting amongst ourselves, we can't identify the enemy, and the enemy is just getting stronger and stronger every day. Go ahead. My thoughts.
No, hey, look, how can I say it any better? You guys are exactly right. You know, I know we focused on something that is not a happy topic so far, you know, in this hour especially, but quite honestly, there's a lot of things that are not happy. There's going to be more to come on that situation that Daniel just mentioned, because I'm definitely in the mindset to declare war on the things that need to be done battle with. And you guys wait and see what we're going to do.
Yeah, we can't talk about it too much now because we don't want to give the game away. But Chuck, before we do run out of too much time, I would ask for your permission to take a personal moment to issue a call to action, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely, man. You know me. Go right ahead.
All right, and this is something that everybody can do, no matter what your religion or politics are. If you are in the state of Georgia, there's a situation that my family is currently dealing with. Chuck knows all too well. And you happen to see a red Jetta with the tag number of CAW6281. That's CAW6281. It's a 2011 Volkswagen Jetta. I would like to give you a little backstory on why am I asking you to look for this car. Because my mother is a 73-year-old woman with COPD on oxygen and a convicted felon by the name of Keith Thomas Bostic. He is 6'2", 236 pounds, heavily tattooed, poorly tattooed, I might add, with brown eyes, brown hair, which is thinning, and a propensity for running away if you use more than two-syllable words. Stole this car from my mother, who is the salt of the earth, and is currently, we have no clue where the car is. So, if anyone in the Georgia area would be so kind as to keep an eye out for this red Jetta, or the Frankenstein piece of human filth that would steal it from one of the kindest, gentlest, most trusting women on the face of the planet, please do your duty as a human being. And then call 911 to report this car. And if you could also reach me on Facebook, it's Daniel Louis Crumpton, and give me real-time information as far as if you see him, both of them. Please let me know so I can contact the authorities, but obviously contact the authorities first yourself. His name is Keith Thomas Bostic. He is 6'2", 236 pounds, heavily tattooed. And like I said, he's got a goatee. You can go on my Facebook wall and see a picture of this piece of crap. So please, I'd like to issue that call of duty. And we as Americans can do something about this injustice, bring this guy to justice, and we might not have to involve the state, or we might do better than the state.
Well, either way, I'll say this. Yeah, absolutely. Please do that. This woman who I've gotten to know is exactly as Daniel describes. It's not just because it's his mom that he says it. It just happens to be the truth. Very sweet lady, and great deal of kindness she's shown to me in recent times as well. I've gotten to know her quite well, and this is really a disgusting situation. So if you can assist with that, yes, I would appreciate it. Personally, I would take it as a personal favor if someone were to help resolve that situation, actually. So thank you very much.
Well, I just saw a mugshot of that guy, and he doesn't look like a very nice guy, Daniel. I just went to your wall and had a look.
Yeah, well,
he looks like a criminal.
Anybody who would steal from a 73-year-old woman that's shown them nothing but kindness, forgiveness, and understanding, I'm not really big into
piece of shit.
Yeah, I'm not really big into eugenics, but in this case, this guy's a primate. He's an inferior,
a predator,
subspecies predator. And, I'm not telling anybody to do anything, but I would not, bat an eye if God, whatever we conceptualize God as, would interject some divine intervention to show this guy what justice is. It's absolutely disgusting to me that we live in that type of a society, which, a lot of it is chemically induced, but that's no excuse. This is a situation that obviously has my household very upset. So anybody who's out there, this is not a joke. Please look out for this guy. Let me know real time. And me and Chuck would appreciate it.
Absolutely. Listen, we're running low on time in general here, fellas, and I want to give each of you the opportunity to say something, because we did run the gambit tonight. We went from, natural solutions to disgusting, irresponsible idiots, all the way to other disgusting individuals who have committed other types of crimes, even if they're not being prosecuted currently for them. We're talking about criminals. We're talking about what the solutions are. And remember this, all of the solutions to the problems that are around already exist. So, Barry, I'll give it to you first. I mean, I know you didn't expect to go through this kind of ride tonight, but hey, when you come on the Ochelli Effect, you never know what's going to happen.
Hey, it's been a blast, Chuck. I love talking with you guys. I really do. It gets my mind going in a million different directions. My biggest focus now is just trying to educate people a little bit on what can be done naturally with their body, because it's the source of all problems. If we have a healthy body, we have a healthy mind, we have a healthy life. We are being bombarded with the chemicals left, right, and center in our society, in every aspect of our society, every aspect of our life. We're being forced chemicals, and our bodies are becoming weaker and weaker, and our minds are becoming weaker, and our souls are becoming weaker. We need First, we need to really take care of this planet, guys. It's our responsibility to take care of this planet. We cannot leave what I see coming to our children. We got to look ourselves in the mirror, and as responsible people, if you love your children, which we all do, we love our children to death, we really got to look maybe 5, 10, 15 years down the road. What we see happening now to this dear planet is only going to get worse. And and there is solutions out there. Everything we need, I honestly believe this with every part of my heart, is that everything we need to cure and fix our planet, our lives, our health, our minds is provided by the planet, guys. And the sooner we can all learn that, the sooner we can get on the right path, because everything that we've done to our bodies in damaging effects can be cured and healed. So
absolutely.
That's all I'm going to say tonight, Chuck. I love you guys. Thanks for having me on, and I'll be thinking about you, really thinking hard about you gentlemen and people when I'm walking through the bush.
Thanks, man. Listen, is the Big Puzzle going to be back on soon?
We're just working. Annie and Rick are they're still homeless, guys. I mean, it's devastating what's happening to them. I'm in contact with them all the time. We're trying to find a house. They still haven't been able to find a reasonable residence. They found lots in high prices, but nothing they can afford. So
it is a troublesome thing. Yeah, it is a troublesome thing. And of course, Rick and Annie is Shake and Wake Radio. But I want to see Barry Prince's The Big Puzzle back on. If you guys are interested in talking to Barry, though, he's approachable on Facebook.
I am.
Daniel Louis Crumpton, the author of Then Came the Flood, by the way, which we almost never mention. Also, downloadedcontent.com. just a minute real quick there, Daniel, the closing thoughts on tonight's discussion.
Yeah, well, I want to second what Barry said. When the mind is weak, the body will suffer, and vice versa. It is important that we all kind of get our temples in order so that we can think clearly. That is the first thing. As far as I go, everybody can find me at downloadedcontent.com. Obviously, those are my writings. You can pick up my novel, Then Came the Flood. And, as far as what we're talking about tonight, it is important that at the end of the day, no matter who you listen to on YouTube or on iPod or whatever, whoever it is that you listen to, the most important thing is that you take about 10 minutes afterwards and actually think for yourself. Don't be reactionary to anybody who is telling you or giving you information. Think for yourself. Take a minute and think about things before you possibly get yourself in a situation like these guys in Oregon. Because, at the end of the day, that all sin is from ignorance, and it's just not knowing. And so it's important, gather information, but the thing I would leave it with, Chuck, is the most important thing is think for yourself. Use your own mind. And that's all I got, so.
Downloaded Content Podcast. Downloaded Content.